I'm Ray Dickey from South Carolina and Hudson Valley CAI, along with Association Help Now. We are covering many states. Today, our topic is psychology of cults and dysfunctional boards. And also, I added governance turns into groupthink. I did a lot of research on this. I found a lot of similar situations. So I think it'll be kind of fun to dive in and take a look at some of these aspects. Also, we love comments and questions. Please. It makes it like so much more enjoyable. Yeah, do I have a bunch of stuff to talk about? Yeah, but I'd rather have you guys bring stuff up. I really would. It makes for such a better program. I don't use people's names, so feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask. Don't send me anything too top secret though, because you never know if I could make a mistake. With that being said, let me have our board introduce themselves. And I didn't make a board slide, but that's okay. I'll use this one. All right, let's start off with who I see first, and that is Dave.
Good morning, everybody. I am an attorney with the law firm of Ansell, Grimm & Aaron, and my community associations group represents co-ops, condominiums, and homeowners associations in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania.
All right, and Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I'm Jennifer Hawk, and I am here with Associate CAMS Management Group in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area.
And this is the first time you've been here, right, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for mentioning.
And by the way, Jennifer knows everything about medieval times. So if you have any questions about medieval times, you can send them to me and I will ask Jennifer for you. She was the marketing.
The restaurant or actually medieval times, like the times of medieval.
Jennifer,
hey,
which was it?
If you worked there, you had to know. I was the marketing and sales director for Medieval Times Dinner and Tournament for 10 years.
So it's both, probably.
Dave, it's the whole show with the horses and sword fighting and everything. All right.
Worked at 7 of their 9 castle locations.
And the horses weren't harmed in any of the shows, right?
Okay. No horses were harmed in the making of any show.
Good.
And Christine.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Bates. I'm the branch vice president for Associate New York. We're located here in the Hudson Valley area of New York.
Okay, so the psychiatry of cults and dysfunctional boards, governance turns into groupthink. I am not accusing boards of being cults, okay? Just to get that like out of the way right away. I am just talking about similar characteristics that they can fall into. It's not about cults, it's about behavior today and patterns. This happens in all kinds of groups. It just doesn't have to be related to our industry. And this even happens when people have good intentions. You know, Christine, in our industry, how often do you think people get off track, even with the best of intentions? I think it's a lot.
Very often, yes.
Yeah. And Jennifer, do you agree also?
Yes, absolutely. Steering and driving boards, as I say, going in the right direction is super important.
But, you know, they do get off track. So this is a great live stream for you to take a look at your own board or maybe even yourself and see if you're falling into some of these traps. All right. So what is something similar that a board would expect that may be the same as a cult? And there's just 4 of these items here. Conformity. Dave, do you agree that a lot of boards, new board members feel very obligated to conform with the current status of the board?
Yes, unless they joined the board as part of a oppositional wave, you know, a transition type election campaign. Otherwise, yeah, they will themselves feel a great obligation to conform, which is a normal thing when you join an organization. You're generally should listen before you speak when you get involved with something. But that isn't always good either, too. So it depends on the situation.
Well, we're going to talk about that today. It's definitely not always good. The other one I had was control, Christine. Control. A lot of people feel like when they join a board that they want to be in control of many, many situations, or they're being controlled. Sometimes they don't feel well. Do you agree with this?
Yes, I always feel like when you have any type of group and any type of setting, there's always at least one person that generally takes over and feels the need to become the leader of the group and wants to be in control.
The leader, right, exactly. The other one I have, Jennifer, and audience, I'm interested in what you think. Loyalty. A lot of people get on a board, Jennifer, and even if they're, like Dave said, they're the opposition and they get on board, all of a sudden they realize maybe the circumstances aren't what they thought, and they have a sense of loyalty to the board, not the association, to the board. Do you agree, Jennifer?
Yeah, sometimes you can find that, the board members are put into a situation. These are their fellow homeowners and maybe even their friends too before they join the board. That loyalty can play into the scenario. And sometimes board members join the board for the wrong reasons too. So it's always right, in my opinion, to encourage your board members to understand that when you become a board member, absolutely your loyalty to be to the association, the governing documents, and what you need to do.
So the last one I have is, I don't know if anybody's going to agree with me, but this is based on my research. Boards can become isolated. Dave, I think they really can. Sometimes there's a hot topic going on, negative interactions. They definitely, I think, pull back a lot of times from people in the community that are hostile towards them. I don't know if we can blame them, but do you agree, Dave, that they can become isolated?
Sure. I think boards are, in a lot of ways, just the same as any governmental structure. The ivory tower, elitist sort of isolation aspect that you get, regardless of ideology or party. It's you get to a certain point, you're sort of in the echo chamber of where you govern, and you forget sort of the needs and the interests of the people that you're elected to serve.
So I already got like 3 comments in regard to loyalty, which I love. Thank you so much for sending them. And one is, can you define loyalty? Can you define loyalty? Dave, I think in this case, I'm looking at loyalty in somewhat, I hate to say, a little bit of a negative aspect, maybe loyalty to the board instead of loyalty to the association, which Jennifer touched upon. Dave, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, they're asking for the definition of loyalty, but it's pretty broad.
Well, a board member has an absolute legal duty of loyalty to the corporation, to the association, no obligation to the board, whatever that even means, or a duty of loyalty to individual people. The duty of loyalty is only about the entity, and in fact, sometimes your duty to the entity would conflict with your duty of loyalty. Your duty of loyalty to the corporation, to the association, would conflict with what you think your duty is to your fellow board members.
But can we acknowledge that many board members, Christine, can we acknowledge that many board members do develop this sense of loyalty to their fellow board members? After all, there's politics involved. They want to get things done, and it can get confusing on board members. And we're going to explore that today, but that does exist. It is an issue in our industry. Do you agree, Christine?
Yeah, I think that, again, that's where the human nature comes in, where, you're working with these people, you're getting closer, you're working on a common ground. And I think sometimes that happens without people necessarily wanting it to.
Right. No one ever wants to be on a board, and those are some of the reasons why. I have a new board member questioning every decision I ever made for the past 3 to 5 years. When given the actual details, her eyes become wide open because she's only heard them through the grapevine. And thoughts on board members who have loyalty to their friends and not loyalty to the board and the association. I didn't really plan on exploring that aspect today, but that's why I love when the audience chirps in, Jennifer, because I didn't even think about that aspect of it, but definitely, right, Jennifer, loyalty towards the people that got you there.
Absolutely. One of the most important things I feel like as a manager is educating the board to make sure that they understand what is the right direction in which you need to drive the association. What are your obligations to the association for the documents? And that drives right along the line of loyalty, because they have to abide by those governing documents and be loyal to the association. And sometimes we don't always agree with the docs.
That's for sure. Why this topic matters: it can impact decisions. It can affect the liability because you put the association in bad positions. You can cause damages and you can lose the trust of the owners. And it can be very hard to detect, Dave, because sometimes I think we're asking people to evaluate themselves, and it's hard to see yourself sometimes. Dave, what have you seen with boards?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. I guess it really depends on the individual situation, because I think it depends on sort of why you volunteered in the first place. like what your goals are. Sort of like, you know, the analogy would be if you run for your town council because there's a stoplight and you just can't get fixed, and you just run because you want to take care of one issue. There's that type of person, and then there's the type of person who thinks that maybe, you know, the overall community needs their help. I think it just really depends on sort of what the purpose, what your purpose is, what your reason for doing it is.
And I think what we're talking about here today is groupthink, meaning you kind of get on the board and you only kind of start thinking within that little bubble. Christine, I think this happens all the time, and I think this is a prime example of good intentions. Somebody joins the board with the best of intentions, and this could be a negative, and we're going to talk about that. Do you agree?
I agree. And I think those questions that you just had, you know, they're good reminders for board members to kind of keep in their mind as they're making decisions, to just remind themselves, you know, that they can speak up if they want to. And they should.
Definitely. But Jennifer, a lot of people, they desire harmony. I meant most human beings want to get along with other human beings. Some people are not very nice. They want to suppress dissent. They want to give the illusion of agreement, and then the poor decisions follow. You know, I'm not putting you on the spot, Jennifer, with your boards, but I definitely see this in the industry, and it kind of contradicts itself there, but it's definitely there. Do you agree?
Yeah, the dynamics and the makeup of the board can definitely be interesting and can impact the association in major ways, depending on whether the board is harmonious or whether you have a board member who, you know, is loyal or has self-motivated intentions.
Ooh, someone has a question for Christine and Jennifer. Do you think a non-harmonious board is a negative? Christine, interesting.
Yes, I do think that if it's non-harmonious, it can be a negative, because if there's, you know, a lot of conflict going on, you know, other board members can feel stressed out. I mean, it could be affecting things. I think there is a way to have a harmonious board, but also have differences and disagreements, and, you know, but just do it in a professional way.
You know, I have to look. I don't know what harmonious actually the definition of it is, Jennifer, but you definitely want people to express their own thoughts, though. And, you know, so maybe it wouldn't be harmonious. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Well, I think we use that word a lot in community management. Harmonious is we want everything to sync and sing along in harmony, as I usually say. But it can be interesting when you get the mix of dynamics on the board, as in anything else. When you have a board that's not getting along, when you have creative input, it's different from when you have someone who's intentionally being malicious and disharmonious, or not being harmonious with the rest of the board members because it's a contention fact or there's a underlying reason.
But Dave, do you think I'm kind of reading through the comments here too. Do you think we're expecting too much? And I actually agree with the person that sent this in. We expect too much when we expect someone to join a board with a bunch of strangers and make important decisions and expect it all to be all butterflies and stuff and everything. And it's beautiful. I meant it's going to come with the territory, right, Dave?
I would hope so. I mean, I'm not one to advocate for harmony, so in for the sake of harmony. I don't find dissension or differing opinions to be problematic. I don't find owners with contrasting opinions or that send letters that are adverse to a board member, I don't find them to be a problem. I find it to be a natural, important, healthy aspect of a free society. But I'm an outsider. I'm not a member of a board. I can see how it could be frustrating and difficult in that sort of, you know, in that environment. But I don't find that that harmony is necessarily any better than the need for good loyal opposition.
How about congenial? Somebody sent that word over.
Right, that's different. Yeah, to me that's different. You can what's that silly political thing people say, you can disagree without being disagreeable. I think that's sort of like a good cliche to have. That's an important aspect. You can bring difference and conflict, difference and alternate opinions without being difficult and mean-spirited, and you know, you have to provide the same respect and tolerance to people that you expect to get back to you, if you're the minority on the board and your position is not well liked or well favored, you deserve respect, but you need to show it the other way as well.
So thanks for sending that. I think congenial probably would have been a better word than harmony. So
Yeah, maybe.
Groupthink. How groupthink forms on board. So we're going to kind of dive into it right now. And somebody sent over, and I love when people send me like the content and definitions. Groupthink is a lack of a lack of diversity and a lack of perspective. And I appreciate you sending over. Let me catch up with some of the comments. It's also difficult when you have two board members that are backing each other when it comes to making immediate changes to maintenance and vendors and pushing their own contracts, or a board member that is in agreement with a management company or sees other issues. A bunch of similar comments here. It's important to discuss the idea of consensus at the same time. If overridden by the majority vote, you need to support the majority. The problem arises when you have members who think it's okay to be toxic. Dave is touching upon that now. All right, so groupthink is going to end up being a negative today. I think if anybody thinks groupthink is a positive, has everybody heard of groupthink? I didn't.
Well, the word itself is a loaded word. It all depends upon the language you use. I mean, groupthink could be consensus. I mean,
Okay.
It all depends. The word groupthink is in and of itself a negative word. I would think. I can't imagine that would be used in a positive light.
Okay, well, we're not using it in a positive light today.
Right.
Dave.
I don't think you could
should
ever
be happy.
use it. I don't think you'd ever use it in a positive light.
Small, tight groups, repeated interactions, fall to social pressure, and they are avoiding conflict. And boards are especially vulnerable to this because they are small, volunteer driven, and they're already coming in relationship based. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, these are all concerns and issues that will come up when any small groups get together. But I think, as we kind of talked about, delivery is everything. So I do think that it's up to, especially the board president, to encourage everybody to have an opinion and to be able to speak freely. But then I think it's the duty of the board members, sorry, the lights go off, to express their opinion in a professional manner.
By the way, Jennifer, Christine's light goes off and it's a drinking game. So a lot of people have a drink every time her light goes off. I don't know really if it's working because we have our live streams in the morning.
I think her company's operating on this wind turbine. So it's a light wind day today. So she's losing
energy efficient and good for the environment.
Unless, of course, you have no energy as a result of it. So
I love the audience because boards are vulnerable because they are small, volunteer driven and relationship based.
Right.
And somebody in the audience just completely backed that up. It's very difficult to act on your own beliefs when in that room or with a group of people, and that creates stress. I love the honesty, Jennifer, because sometimes, we do it, other people do it. We get up here and we expect people not to be human beings, right? Oh, it's loyalty to the association and you got to do this and you should do all those things. But in reality, Jennifer, we got to let people know it's difficult, right? It's not easy.
Absolutely. And when you get that extra toxic board member in there who wants to nail the hammer and drive it home with everybody else, that can make it even more stressful for the other board members who are there, as everybody said, on a relationship and driven basis, just trying to make something good happen for the community.
I love when you guys follow along with my slides. It makes my life that's exactly, that was the next one I had. The role of strong personalities. This will definitely send you down the wrong road. And, everybody knows this, but we're actually going to encourage you to how can you stop it? What can you do about it? Will you get back up on it? This would be someone that dominates the discussion. They set the direction and everyone else has to follow, or you get involved in this stress situation. Others defer to them and their influence goes over the line and it becomes control. Dave, I would say this is one of the number one problems in our industry. I don't know if you agree.
I do agree. I do agree. And a lot of it stems from, sort of the idea there'll be sort of one board member. There's a conflict between the natural and appropriate need for some corporate structure, meaning the manager has one liaison. It's the president, and the president's job is to filter information. It would be difficult for a manager to have to respond to 5 or 7 people all day and all the time. So that's one logical thing. But that conflicts with the idea that there should not be one strong personality, because there will be in any corporate structure where one person is the conduit for all the information. This is the way it's going to be. It's a very, very difficult conflict to resolve.
Who on the panel said something about the president? Was that you, Christine?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
the other thing I was going to add to this is definitely the explanation of the roles of the officer positions, as Dave mentioned, and then a timed agenda can help because, you know, give everybody the time to speak their piece and then move on to the next one. I think that at the end of the discussion, really, you know, the motion should be made, a vote should happen, and you should move on to the next topic. I think sometimes what happens is, you know, the boards feel as though everybody has to be in agreement before they move on to the next topic. And that's, you know, not the goal. Not everybody is going to agree. So I think those are some tips to kind of help navigate that.
So Jennifer, like one thing I think people could take away from this, in my opinion, is that one way to get away from groupthink and take some of the control back from these dominant personalities is for who's ever in charge of the meeting to say, now you get a chance to talk. Now you get a chance to talk. Don't just say, does anyone have anything to say? I've been this with my own board meetings for CAI, where you go board member to board member, because some people are uncomfortable speaking and interrupting other people. And if you give them that opportunity to speak, you'd be surprised many times, instead of saying, I don't have anything to say, they have something to say. Jennifer, do you agree with that as a manager?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I think that that strategy absolutely would keep a board that has the railroading board member more in alignment, because that person who's the dominant person on the board is always the person who's going to step up and answer all the questions and give their opinion on everything. And I think it's also important to always, as I remind the boards, everybody has a voice here. There's 5 board members because the governing documents say we need 5 voices to be heard. And it's not just the everybody has to be in accordance or nothing would ever happen in an association. We just have to have the majority to agree.
Now, Dave, to be fair, that's always been my opinion, that who's ever in charge of the meeting goes through and gives everyone an opportunity to speak and ask them. But a lot of people disagree with me. I've done hundreds of these panels, and I've had plenty of people get on there and say, you know what, that's not the way it works. You vote to get on the board, you run for the board, and it's up to you to take the initiative. What do you think?
Interesting. I'll go back to, I guess, what I said before, which is it really depends on the situation you're in. I can see I can see every side. I can see the need for efficient, structured meetings, and then I could see the need for making everyone feel like they're part of the process. It's a deft touch that's required when it comes to management or leaders on a board. It's just it's like any other human organization or human interaction. It requires a lot of different skills, and sometimes a heavy hand and sometimes a light touch.
And I guess if it's the president, Christine, and they're the person that's, which, let's face it, I've been waiting to say this the whole time since I brought it up. Like, I'm saying, oh, well, the president could make sure he asks everybody to talk, but right, let's face it, like most of the time, the person with the overwhelming personality that wants to drive everything a certain way, it's the president, right? So
yeah, sometimes that could be difficult. And also I think that sometimes the presidents want to get their agenda accomplished. And so they don't want to encourage the discussion and the talking. They want to be like, okay, this is done. Move on, move on, move on. So
that's such good insight. Like, I didn't think about that. You're right. Like, a lot of times the president is under pressure to have the meeting end at a reasonable hour. So maybe they're not being pushy. They're just trying to do a good job. Oh, poor presidents. I'm sorry, presidents. That is a really tough part of your job, actually, to move the meeting along and give everybody time to speak. I don't know. Maybe you can't do both. I don't know. Somebody's asking about servant leadership. I don't know what that means. So if you could send that over to me. Does anyone on the panel know what that term means? Okay, no. I'm interested in what you mean by that. So please send that over to me. The board president controls the thoughts and comments of other members, and they hold the majority. This creates stress and unprofessional comments by those in the minority. Uncomfortable for all. Well, I think this is exactly what we're talking about here. I don't think that's a healthy board. And I think the thought process is going to be missing. Jennifer, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, there's a reason there are multiple contributors. It's so that you can hear the different reasons and different suggestions and different thoughts and points of view on any given topic.
Just trying to catch up with the comments. Servant leadership is a people first philosophy where leaders prioritize the growth and the well-being of their team over their personal ambition, aiming to serve first and lead second. Oh, okay. Proposed by Robert Greenleaf in 1977. Interesting. I thought it was a negative comment, but it's actually a positive. And a lot of people are commenting that they're just not heard at the meetings. So they're trying to be heard and they're not. I think these suggestions can only go so far, and I feel sorry that you have to be in that position. Why dissent disappears? Why do people stop putting in their 2 cents, which is exactly what you don't want to have happen? Christine, I'm putting you on the spot. You had no prep. Do you want to take a wild guess what one of the things I had down?
I think it's because of past experiences, because when somebody does the same thing over and over, and they're getting the same result, they just give up.
You know what? I think you hit number 3. I'm going to show it in a second. Labeling them as difficult. Labeling them as difficult. I think that's what you just said. Pretty amazing.
Yes.
And basically, this is why people stop disagreeing on your board. This is why people stop voicing their opinion. And this is how you're going to end up with bad ideas if you don't have anybody feeling comfortable to have dissent. All right, Jennifer, totally putting you on the spot. If you don't know one, you want to take a guess at another reason why?
Well, I'm with Christine. I mean, most of the time they just get fed up, and it's, we're tired of all the. I think also it can be personal commitments related to that point of view. Sometimes board members will shy away from certain topics for personal reasons as well.
Fear of conflict I have. Social isolation, I guess that means everyone will be mad at them and, we're not going to talk to you at the pool anymore, which is pretty sad. Labeling them is difficult, which is what I think Christine said. And it's easier to stay quiet. Dave, do you think this is why dissent disappears?
I mean, it's sure. It's like it's part of life, part of what goes on in the world. And when people decide to speak up and make their opinions heard, and sometimes they carry it out, sometimes they give up, and there's no different. I mean, a lot of associations are microcosms of the overall society, and there are many times throughout history when there are a few people who have the guts to speak about something, and ultimately they end up being vindicated. Oftentimes.
Do you agree that this is a negative for an association to be in this situation?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think long ago, our society at least decided that there was inherent value in dissent and free speech. And although that can create conflict and difficulty and isolation at the pool, overall, society's better off if we protect the idea that everybody has a right to their opinion and to do their own research, and that governments and power structures are inherently suspect, and you can't just take what you're told always to be true, because people have motives to lie oftentimes.
So here's an interesting comment. Dissent can disappear if there is adequate information provided prior to the meeting, so conversations could be based on facts and knowledge. This is driven by the manager. I guess that works if there's an obvious answer to something that could be based on that, right, Christine? Something that doesn't require a conversation.
We agree that, if the board is meeting and for the first time they're looking at the agenda and they're looking at what they have to discuss, then yes, it's very hard for people to come up with an opinion on the spot. So ideally, if the information is sent in enough time for the board to review, then it makes for a more productive meeting.
All right, so let me put you guys on the spot and ask you a hard question, okay? And I have kind of my research at the end telling you how to correct these things, but let me throw it at you right now, all right? And there's a lot of them here, so we want to watch our time. Dave, what is your suggestion on how to stop this? How can you stop and not have dissent disappear? What can a board do? Who's responsible for it? Because we know it's a negative. Who's responsible to correct it?
I don't know that it needs to be corrected. I think Christine's point about or comment about information. I mean, you don't necessarily need to correct dissent or differing opinions. You need to just be open and honest and transparent and provide information. I mean, I think I've often found 30 plus years or so that boards and even if I'm involved in a meeting or something, we're in a better position if we're able to say, this is the situation, this is what we think. It's a free country, you're free to have a different opinion, but this is what we think. Next question. And you just move on. There's nothing, you got to provide information, but even if you provide information, people can interpret it differently. There's no way to procure 100% agreement on every single thing. And I don't know what kind of society we'd have if that were the case.
We're not looking for agreement, Dave. We're looking for
to remove dissent. I mean, removing dissent is agreement, isn't it?
We're trying to offer suggestions where a board could have a conversation instead of.
Yeah, I think providing information, like Christine said, providing information and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. And it's not fair that people have a fear of conflict, social isolation, labeling them as difficult and easier to stay quiet. Now, the answer may be, and a lot of panelists agree with this, and they happen to be attorneys, and I think that follows the theme. Like, look, they got to stand up for themselves. Attorneys are really pragmatic, and they look at things kind of black and white sometimes, right, Dave? That's what you get paid for.
Yeah.
Jennifer, that being said, I meet a lot of other people that are very much interested in doing the best job they absolutely can, and they want to run a meeting where they feel there was a true conversation. What do you think, Jennifer?
Well, I'm in accordance that if you can provide information up front and they have more, and they're armed with more info and have more transparency and clarity about whatever the topics are that they're talking about, that dissension can be brought to a minimal point. But you're always going to have some board member that may have a personal reason for being in opposement of this or some other objective for that. So, I think it's all somewhat topic based as well, and how important are some of those topics to the efficiency, effectiveness, and the operations of the actual board and the organization.
I feel like dissent was the wrong word to use, Christine, because I feel like everyone's looking at it as a negative, right? So here's a comment which I think is clear rules, and they will foster open communication. If the president cannot do it, the manager should be able to take charge. So there, I think, is someone who kind of agrees with me a little bit that there should be an effort made to allow people to have a dissenting opinion. Christine.
So my take on this is that, looking at this from a little bit of the bigger picture here, I think this happens with familiarity, with board members that have been on for years and years and years. They got their routine together, and I don't really think that the system is meant to really operate in that way, because many communities have in their governing documents elections. So I would put a lot of this on the homeowners as well, because I think that, if the homeowners run for the board positions and there's turnover, then you will get more fresh perspectives, because I think this happens in the beginning when everybody's fresh on the board, and then as time goes, everybody gets familiar and they get to the routine and they just keep doing everything the same way.
I've got like 2 comments from presidents, and I'll just read the one. They're pretty similar. As a president, I try to share as much information as possible, and unfortunately find members do not want to spend time understanding the information. So that would probably go the same with the board members. We're kind of giving presidents, dumping a lot of stuff on presidents today, and in a lot of cases, they're single-handedly running the associations unfairly.
But what's funny too, though, with Ray is that, sorry,
hold on, Dave. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to throw in that I thought it was an interesting comment you made, because that sort of goes back to what I tell boards sometimes is to be careful what you wish for problem. People, give me information. I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of it. Be careful what you wish for. Here you go. Like that, you're saying the comment you're getting, Ray, from some board presidents. Here's the information. Then you find out they haven't read it. Well, then that gives you the political argument, which is, dude, I gave the information, you didn't read it, so we're moving on. I mean, like, it gives you that, gives you that power. It gives you a little leverage.
That's a whole other topic, Dave. I'm not disagreeing or agreeing with it. A lot of stuff about homeowners not paying attention. Loyalty versus fiduciary duty. I think we already touched upon this, Jennifer. Personal loyalty grows when they're on the board to other board members. We stick together. I feel like we promote that sometimes. I've seen that attitude promoted in other educational programs. Emotional decisions and duty gets blurred. We stick together, Jennifer. There's a lot of stuff out there where we say, well, we have to we have to be one unit when we stand up in front of the community. We can't let the community know that Bob voted differently than everyone else. What do you think about that, Jennifer? People have a lot of different thoughts on that.
I have absolutely heard that said by the boards before, that we have to give the appearance. I think that in the end, the most important thing is that whatever the element was that they made a decision on, that it was reviewed fairly and efficiently, and that everyone had a chance to voice their opinion, whether they voted, abstained, or didn't vote for it at all. But there is that some kind of perception that we need to present that to the association membership, but I don't know that that's a necessity.
That would be, but I'll tell you, Jennifer, that would be the minority view, because I've been doing a lot of these and people totally disagree with that. I agree with, my opinion is I agree with you, in a nice way, not keep arguing, but it should be, we stick together after all the vote and direction is set. That is by far the most common thought that I've seen in my experience. Yet I'm getting other comments. Every single board that I've ever worked for over the last 6 years have said that. This sense of unity when they stand up in front of the community. Sometimes I think that gives a wrong impression, Christine, but I will admit I'm the minority in that.
Well, I think that's a little extreme. I think that the board is a team when you think about it. You know, the president is kind of like the CEO, and, you know, you have the whole board culture, and, you know, it is nice for them to, you know, be on the same page. I think with Jennifer, the way that Jennifer explained it was perfect. You know, that we've reviewed, you know, the decisions, and the board members all have a chance to put in their opinion, and, you know, but having an ultimate, you know, being on the same page and, you know, being in the same direction, I don't think is a uniform front for the community. I don't think is a negative.
Even before you mentioned that, people had mentioned there's no I in team very much. So Dave,
Yeah.
I just want to be careful on our time though, but it's interesting, like the word team and groupthink. I know we're using groupthink as a negative, but being a team is not a negative, right? So I don't even know.
Right. Being a team is not a negative, but it goes back to sort of what somebody said earlier, which is a team would be that you're allowed to have different opinions and different votes, different thoughts, but you have to stand behind the decision that's made. That's a team, I think.
Well, that's how democracy works, right? In a way, isn't it? Like everybody
Should
gets
be.
a vote and then you go with whatever the vote was.
Yeah,
So,
should be.
information control, limited discussion, selective sharing, side conversations, decisions are pre-made. I think somebody even commented on this, Christine, in the comments that I read. This could be a problem, and this could definitely limit conversation and bring you to groupthink. Yes?
Yes, I think you have to watch the side conversations when you're a board member, because those could really get you in trouble, because you don't want to be giving certain board members an advantage of, you know, information that other board members are not, you know, privy to. So I think that is definitely one of the things. And I think, again, that a lot of this stuff board members don't even think about. You know, they may just be calling one of their board members to have a conversation and shoot the breeze, and they don't realize that now it's almost like they've made a political plea to this person, you know, to get them on their side before the board meeting even occurs. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that, you know, you got to keep in your mind.
You're going to get controlled outcomes, I have, instead of transparent governance when this takes place. Jennifer, this happens though, right? Like human nature.
Absolutely. Just like Christine said. And a lot of the times it may be with innocence that they proceed into the conversation, and it leads down the path to a full-blown discussion, and that board member all of a sudden is divulged information and et cetera. So yeah, we've got to keep it in the room of everybody needs to be on the same playing field and have access to the same information.
Dave, I think there's a legal aspect to this, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, what is it?
I think
You're the lawyer. I don't really want to. I don't want to really have to continue on anymore about it.
Well, I think
if you could please share,
in terms of like sharing information, in terms of like sharing information outside
can
of
board
like
members
formal
let me
kind of
ask the
way.
question. Can board members get together before a board meeting and have a conversation about a topic and have and then kind of maybe they don't even have to come to an agreement about a vote. Where's the line here?
Well, it's funny, not funny, haha, but it's funny because every states have different rules about those kinds of things, in terms of what decisions you can make in an informal setting, what decisions can only be made in the context of an actual board meeting with certain notices and stuff. So there are legal issues as to what a board can do, but there's nothing, at least in the states where I practice, there's nothing illegal about board members coalescing around a particular position before a meeting and agreeing to take a certain position. That's just a normal operation. But as to the creation of an actual enforceable decision, some states require that to be done in a more formal, sort of transparent way.
I don't want to get too out of track here, and I want to make sure I get to our suggestions on how to fix these problems. But like, there is a thing too, Dave, in some states, like if a bunch of board members are sitting around, they can actually become a quorum or something, right? It seems kind of silly.
Yeah, that's a
true, right?
see, that's a public meetings type of concept. Yeah. That's a thing that goes with like a township or a municipality, and there are local laws and state laws about how many elected officials can be in one place and what can they discuss without notice to the public. In the states where I practice, that's not a thing for associations. The limit on associations is merely the creation of an actual decision. There's nothing wrong with even majority of the board members sitting, or a full board sitting around and being like, hey, we have the meeting this week, let's do this, let's do that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right, but some people in the audience are also saying those should be done. So, and a lot of people are making comments. There's rules in Florida. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it depends on the state. Depends on the state.
This is definitely one where you want to check with your own professionals on the legalities of that. Some people are saying boards have codes of conduct they need to follow and things like that. Warning signs of dysfunction. I'm curious how many people out in the audience have these issues. You have board meetings, and maybe they're negatives or positives. I'll ask the panel. And I'll start with Jennifer this time. Jennifer, they're saying my research, and look, audience, I'm devil's advocate here. Don't blame me. I don't always agree with what's on here, but somebody's got to bring it up. My research, Jennifer, says that if there's no real debate, that's a sign of dysfunction. What do you think?
I think it depends on the topic. I mean, I don't know that all topics need a great debate. And I think we should focus our time, energy, and effort on the things that we do need to accomplish.
Yeah, I know. That seems like a tricky one. Christine, and go back to the one if you want to, but how about same voices dominate the conversation? I don't know how I feel about that one either. Is that really a sign of dysfunction?
No, I don't think so. I think that goes again to, personalities of people. I think some people are just the first to want to speak and have a lot to say. So I think, if that's an issue for the board, then letting everybody talk is, a good way to counteract that.
Quick, anonymous votes. Dave, I could definitely see these could be negatives, but man, it's not set in stone. What do you think?
I think some things are no-brainers. I mean, if you've got an open seat on the board and the board's the 5-member board and there's an open seat on the board and the 4 board members who are left have decided to appoint a guy down the road, and why screw around why waste time? You like to make a motion to appoint Bob as the new board member. All those in favor, aye. I mean, the meeting's over. There's no reason to, there's a difference between sort of the transparency and the openness vis-a-vis the owners versus that concept vis-a-vis just the board members. And the board members don't need to dilly-dally on certain things that don't require that. I think one of the ladies mentioned this. I think they made a comment earlier before, which I think was really good, which is sort of like, you want to encourage people to volunteer for the board, and the more time you waste on silly things discourages volunteerism. So there are some things that are no-brainers that should be treated like no-brainers. I mean, you don't need to debate something that, and in that case, a guy who's being difficult would be the guy who's being difficult. He's being difficult simply for the purpose of being difficult, as opposed to offering up alternative ideas.
Jennifer, sometimes it appears Dave's not paying attention, but he really is, if you notice. Like sometimes he's eating sandwiches. The last live stream we did, he was like folding stuff. He literally was like a copy center the whole time.
It's
It's just,
multitasking.
but he is listening to what you guys are saying. Resistance to questions. I guess it means that that could be a sign of dysfunction if any kind of dissent, I guess, is questioned. I guess we shot that one down except for maybe the last one. I don't know what the audience thinks. If you could send it in to me. Emotional pressure in the room. Tell me if you've ever heard this, Christine. We've always done it that way. You ever hear that,
Oh.
Christine?
Hear it all the time.
All right.
Number one saying at a board meeting.
And then audience, if you want to send over yours, if we have time to get to them, I'd love to. Jennifer, how about don't rock the boat?
Yeah, especially in my marina communities. Yes, absolutely. We sometimes the board members don't want to rock the boat. We just want it to keep on sailing.
Be a team player. Dave, you ever hear that one? Board to board?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just-
I mean, that's a thing. Yeah.
But we don't even know if that one's really a negative one. We've decided. And then subtle pressure for people to agree when these things are kind of said. It's really
Context. It's all context.
yeah, but it depends how if the person's being a jerk though. Multiple times a disagreeable board member gets the thing shut down by the ownership and attendance. That when that happens, it's the best ever. And then that one I don't get. Risk to the associations, bad decisions, legal exposure, financial impact, and loss of credibility. If this takes place and no one really has any conversation about anything, or if everyone just agrees on everything immediately. Observe the dynamics, encourage balance, provide structure, and stay neutral. Sometimes I don't understand my own research, Jennifer. Stay neutral. Board members don't have to stay neutral, right? They're supposed to have their own opinion. Why is that in there?
Yeah, I definitely, they've got to have some opinion on things too. I thought that said community manager before that, but yeah, I mean, the staying neutral. Yeah, we want them to have an opinion.
Maybe that's poor AI language, and what it really means is stay open-minded, not neutral.
Maybe.
That's probably a
You
good
really hate AI, Dave. Okay.
Yeah.
How to break groupthink. We're finally at the guts of it. And audience, please send me your opinions. Oh, the manager needs to be neutral. Very good
Yeah,
comment.
I thought
Thank
that
you.
said
So-
manager on the slide before that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good
See,
point.
the audience
good point.
follows along better than I do. So thank you so much. Much appreciated. How to break groupthink. So we're finally going to offer, like groupthink is a negative. Don't get me wrong. I feel like we found it to be positive almost back and forth. But for the most part, if everyone's making the same decisions and not really having a conversation about anything, and people are being pushed into things and they feel uncomfortable offering opinion, that's all negative. That's all cult-like. And that's all groupthink. Anybody disagree with my summary in the panel? Yay. Okay. Dave usually disagrees with me, Jennifer, but we'll see.
That
disagree.
was because you do that one yourself. You didn't read that from AI. That's why.
Disagree. A manager cannot be neutral if you have more experience than the board members. You have to be able to express what you know.
Good
I
point.
think, you know what? Great point. 100%. Man, I just flip-flop. I'm sorry.
The manager should be the guiding light.
I know. All you need is to discuss inclusion. All you need to discuss inclusion, and no one will be willing to serve. And a lot of people are saying good points. Okay, to break groupthink, Christine, invite dissent. I think we've talked that one to death so far. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is where some board member training could also come in handy, letting everybody know what they're supposed to be doing when they come to, what the role of a board member is, what they're supposed to be doing when they come to the meetings. Because just going back to basics, you may have new board members that are really not sure if they're supposed to speak up or what they're supposed to do. So I think that comes into play too.
I'm all for this one, Jennifer, but I've actually learned from the live stream today that it's not as easy as it appears because, right, some of the reasons we discussed about inviting different opinions, presidents, right? Can you run with it, Jennifer? Everybody has, this could be good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the reason why the governing documents say that there are multiple members who will be on the board, so that you can intake all the different opinions of the members in the association and hopefully invite those open-ended discussions and get information on topics that are relevant. And it's always interesting when I look at the docs, do we need 1 to 3 board members? Do we need 3 to 5, 5 to 7? So that can be a wide range of invites there on how many people we need to invite into the conversation.
I love this comment. Thanks for sending it. Inviting dissent. I've tried it. No one wants to hear. So, here we are having a big conversation, and then there's presidents out there, people in charge, or I guess people just want to go to the meeting, right, Dave, and get the heck out of there.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's I think we have to marry the invite dissent thing with invite empowerment. Like,
yeah,
I think board members do have an obligation to learn and get information. And I think that when you do dissent for dissents for simply to be a dissenter, you're causing more trouble. That's not really what transparency and free speech and such is meant to foster. You have some, especially on a board where you're a fiduciary, you have some obligation to get information, to learn, which is often why people join organizations like boards and they sit quietly for the beginning and they learn before they speak.
Practical tools. I think this falls into play here. You could have, if you want to have, I hate using the word dissent, but I guess I'll keep using it. Have a roundtable input. You just go around everybody. Devil's advocate role, which I do a lot here. Anonymous feedback. I don't really know what that means. And structured agendas. I think structured agendas are huge, right, Christine? That'll make things go easily. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that if you're planning on having a huge discussion on one topic, that it may not be a bad idea to break that into a separate meeting at another time, because sometimes, you don't want the board meetings to go 3-4 hours. So if it is a hot topic with a lot to talk about, you may want to consider moving that conversation.
Interesting comments. Jennifer, Dave is right, but some members are not fit for the job. Because volunteers could be anybody. You got to really push coming to the meeting ready to discuss agenda items. And last comment here, manager equals devil's advocate. I think we're going to have to save that. I love that as a topic. Manager equals devil's advocate. We don't have time, but Jennifer, what do you think about those comments?
That's a whole webinar right there.
It is. That's a great comment. What
do
you think about where we are so far, Jennifer, with the comments that we heard?
Yeah, I think there's just some really great comments that are pertinent to what we're talking about. And for the managers in the realm out there that are watching this, they're giving different comments from the board members that are watching this as well. So it's always interesting to see the dynamic feedback.
And the person that sent me the devil's advocate thing, I know they know me, can you email it to me? Because I may rope you into the live stream, but if you don't have to do it, if you don't, because I think that's a great topic. Let me hit with some suggestions on things that you could say if you want to use. I just want to pause for a moment. Let's say like no one's getting to provide input and things are out of hand and you think you have a groupthink situation. I just want to pause for a moment. Are we all actually in agreement, or are we just moving forward because no one wants to push back? Jennifer, you think that's going to go over well? Good.
Well, I think that's a moment when we stopped and asked for confirmation that everybody's happy in the room. Whether that goes over well depends on the dynamics of the members in the room. But I think at that point, we've done our due diligence, we've paused, and we've given everybody a chance to step up and say anything that they want.
Let's say it's an important decision and you don't feel people are discussing it enough. You could also say, I may be the only one seeing this way, but I think we need to hear at least one opposing viewpoint before we make a decision. Dave, this is a very common tool that boards use where they actually assign this sometimes to someone must have an opposing opinion on major decisions. What do you think?
I've never heard of that actually before. Maybe Christine and Jennifer have on a more foundational level. That's not something I've heard of. I've seen it done. I know it's a part of a World War Z, the movie that came out. That was part of that.
I love it. Christine, have you ever heard of that? It's a major decision and someone is assigned to play devil's advocate. You never heard of it?
No, I have not.
No. Jennifer, how about you?
I have actually, yes.
There you go.
I mean, sometimes I don't know that I think we need the devil's advocate. Sometimes, as we already said, things are no brainers or we know what the right decision is. So
I like it if it's a big decision. It would make me nervous, but if no
But
one
it's
had
a big part. It's a big part of World War Z. If you want to watch that movie, you'll see it.
People can tune in for your movie reviews. We'll do it
Brad
as a
Pitt.
separate.
Brad Pitt's in it.
David,
He's cool. So.
your movie reviews we could do as a separate live stream, and if people want to tune in separately, they can. Okay, we'll do that as another segment. No CUs though. All right, we've reached a consensus pretty quickly. Can we take a step back and make sure we fully challenge this from different angles? And I'll go to the last one here. I'm a little concerned that we may be prioritizing agreement over discussion right now, and that could lead to decisions we may regret later. Dave, I have a funny feeling you hate all these, but comment.
No, I mean that's a logical sort of cliche. Yeah, there's always, as I said before, there's oftentimes there's a person who has a different opinion that only years later you find out that he or she was right the whole time.
I love this. This is from a manager. I tell my board, you pay me to be the devil's advocate. I agree. We got to definitely do that as a live stream. The supporting, because there'll be legalities involved with like how far can you go and stuff like that.
Love the devil's advocate.
I know. I love it. The supporting agenda research should point to the pros and cons, and just a bunch of the same similar comments. All right. Building a board. I'm going to fly through this and we'll go to, I want to give you guys plenty of time for closing thoughts. Transparency, open discussion, respectful disagreement, practical tools. We already went through. Final takeaway. I do believe this could be a problem for a board. It could start subtly. It can happen anywhere. Awareness is the key. Behavior drives governance. You do not want to have groupthink, even though I felt we're all over the place. All right, Dave, I'm going to let the managers go last. We have 3 minutes here. What is your closing thoughts on today?
My closing thought on today is that this is sort of going to seem obvious, I guess, but it's a very delicate balance between the need to be efficient, to encourage volunteerism through efficiency, and the need to avoid intimidation, I guess is maybe the right word, of a possible alternative alternative view. But in the end, people who are on a board have an obligation to inform themselves and learn before they are oppositional. Being oppositional just for the sake of being oppositional is not helpful. But being oppositional once you feel like you've got enough information to be able to make a point could be useful. But you can't have one without the other.
Jennifer.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, definitely this is one of the more extreme sides of community management and where we have to deal with personalities and clashes and the things that can turn into, power struggles right in front of our own eyes. But I think that as Dave's already said, that it's a caveat of the board and of the organization, and that boards being harmonious and having a variety of different personalities is always something that we're going to have to learn to struggle with and to do our very best with to accomplish, and to help the boards that want to be dysfunctional from not being dysfunctional by educating them and providing them the resources and tools that will help them to be better board members for their organizations.
So, Christine, I started off having a thought process on this. This is a real thing. Governance turns into groupthink, and I feel strongly you don't want this to happen. But I feel like the audience helped dictate the kind of. I think I learned a lot from today, and I learned it from the audience. I thought it was interesting, but go ahead, Christine, closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, I did as well. And it was really interesting to hear the thoughts from the audience as well. I think being a board member, as I said before, is really a thankless position. And especially if you're here watching this and you're a board member, that means that you're trying to do the best that you can for your community. And there's just so much to consider. So I just think that, at the end of the day, as we had some really good tips here, with the potential, timed agendas, just making sure that you're giving all the board members a time to speak, deciding whether Sometimes you need to have a longer conversation about something and deciding whether it's a no-brainer and you just want to move on. But yeah, I think that just being here is a step in the right direction.
Well, I want to thank everybody being here, and thanks today for audience. You were a huge help today, and I hope to see everybody next time. And that's it. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.